This is Business Therapy, healing businesses from the inside out through communication and emotional intelligence. I'm Diane Hansen, management consultant, and with me co-host Christine Salvo, therapist, certified mediator, certified hypnotherapist.
Good morning, everyone. Hello.
Good morning, everybody. And today on the show, we have Eric Beschinski, who is a business navigation consultant and owner of Greenfire Innovations. He's a trainer, coach, author, speaker, and the enemy of mediocrity. With nearly 20 years of entrepreneurial experience, Eric has also been in the financial services sector for almost 16 years. His unique blend of business acumen, sales ability, creativity, solutions based mindset, and communication skills provide the foundation for his consulting firm. Although his official title is Chief Navigation Officer, Eric considers himself a B2B missionary. He is passionate about helping other leaders fulfill their purpose. In 2020 and 2021, Eric released two books, The iNautilus Guide for Organizational Navigation and the Pi Nautilus Guide for Personal Navigation to help organizations and individuals reach their ideal destinations. He has also been published on Thrive Global, Medium.com, and Entrepreneur.com. Welcome to the show, Eric.
Hey, thanks for having me.
I love that you say you are the enemy of mediocrity. What does that look like, and how did you come to label yourself in that way?
Well, it was actually fairly recently. I've tried to better myself and hire coaches and listen to people and all those kinds of things, like I advise other people to do. And one of the questions that was posed to me recently is, "What are you the enemy of?" And it was, for me, it was immediate mediocrity, like apathy, that just sense of everything being okay the way it is. And so I just adopted that, threw it in my Clubhouse profile, and have been using it since.
Yeah, I have to even just jump in on this because what a beautiful question. I actually haven't really heard it phrased that way. So very thought-provoking. What is the enemy to you? What kills your spirit? What dims your light? What takes you out of the game? Love that question so much. So I'm already going to encourage our listeners to start asking yourself just that specific question right now.
Well,
What
and
are you
the
the enemy of?
opposite, what are you the enemy of? Like
Ooh,
that is
okay.
another twist that,
Let's hear it. Yeah, go.
so that's why I say I'm the enemy of mediocrity. Mediocrity isn't I'm not, it doesn't defeat me, but I'm out there tackling it. So that's just a little bit, both questions are very, very good and valid though.
No, I love your twist, actually. What are you the enemy of, and what is the enemy of me? I think both of those are really thought-provoking questions
Yeah,
that aren't typically asked in a regular setting.
exactly.
So Eric, what got you doing what you do today and get you on the path to being a B2B missionary?
Well, the long story is I've had this idea, that this concept of the iNautilus, what it is now, started about 13 years ago. And I was tasked for a company I was working for at the time to help develop a training module for leaders of an organization. And as I was compiling things and looking at different information, I just felt there wasn't anything that really tied it all together. And so I was sitting at my house on the couch one evening, and I had this epiphany, this idea of the Nautilus shape. Because it's progressive, it can go inward and spiral inward or outward in a spiral. But as long as it's only one layer, then everything is touching the center. And so that was key to this concept of iNautilus. And so over the last 13 years, that's evolved and become what it is now. I've kind of created my own terminology around a nautical theme. And it's all about strategic planning and what I call organizational navigation, because it's strategy plus execution. But it's visual and it's progressive and functional. So all of that to say, that's kind of the history. And I was working full time a couple of years ago for a credit card processing company, and I was in sales training. I love my job. I love my team. I worked from home, had good benefits, good pay, all that stuff. I was doing a lot of statement analysis, so really detailed number stuff, but also coaching salespeople how to sell accounts. And when COVID hit, I got furloughed, And so I took that time as an opportunity to work on some projects, but one of those was getting my book published and out. And then when that was close to done, I found out my job was going away altogether. So I probably never would have left the job, but since it was, I left involuntarily, then I decided it's time to go ahead and move forward with what I've always wanted to do. And that's work with businesses and nonprofit organizations on organizational navigation.
I love how you frame it as navigation as well, because an organization is kind of like a ship. It's going in a direction, and if its navigation is off, what have you seen happen to organizations that just can't dial in that navigation?
Well, a lot of companies, especially small business and a lot of nonprofits, they have an idea of what it is they want to do, but they don't have a very clear destination in mind. And so they're just wandering the seas. And that's my terminology, they're just wandering around. And unfortunately, when you're wandering, you're not actually really accomplishing all you're capable of. So by actually identifying, first of all, where you are right now, you can't get a map to where you want to go if you don't first know where you are. So identify where you are, then work through a process of, what's important to you, what's your overriding purpose, and then find out, okay, what is our next ideal destination? And those are I always capitalize those, ideal destination, because it's part of my iNautilus. It's the blue segment on the, if you don't have a visual here, but if you see it at some point, it's 6 shapes inside this spiral. And one of those is blue, and that's the ideal destination, or IDEST. And so with that in place, you now have clear direction and something to move towards. And likewise, as a business is like a ship, right? You can't steer a stationary ship. You can't steer a business that isn't moving anywhere. So it requires action. And that's why, again, navigation is strategy plus execution. It requires movement.
Ooh, yeah. I love little things like this plus that equals that. So through your own kind of journey here in pivoting, you had to go through some of your own challenges, I imagine, right? So you're kind of on this one track, COVID happens, you get furloughed, and then it really helps you to kind of reset your arrow, right? So what do I really want to do? What really feeds my soul? And then going and doing it. But I'm guessing that you had a bit of a process there. And I always like sharing these processes, because too often we go from, I was this way and now I'm this way, and we kind of miss the middle. And the middle is usually those relatable parts where we're all kind of like, well, I've been there, I've thought that, and can be typically really healing and thought-provoking for others. So would you mind kind of sharing a little bit of your middle and what you went
Sure.
through?
I think I'm probably still in that a little bit, because I'm just kind of getting the ball rolling here with my business. But there, what really pivoted things, it started, there's always history, right? So a couple years ago, I went through a book called, and it's gonna sound funny, but Chazon. It's a Hebrew word. It comes from Proverbs, the verse where it says, "Without a vision, the people will perish." That word vision is in Hebrew is chazon. It's Chazon. And there's a book by that title written by Craig Rochelle that I walked through myself. And it's designed to help you identify what your purpose is on this planet. And it was really good for me. It wasn't like huge revelatory, but it clarified for me that my purpose is to help other people fulfill their purpose. I don't get real excited about causes. There are all kinds of great things that people do, and I'm all about that, but I don't get excited about helping, this overseas project or this people group. They all need it, and it's great that other people are willing to do that. I don't get excited about. What I get excited about is helping those people fulfill their mission and their purpose. So once I had that revelation, or it wasn't a revelation, but once I clarified that thought process, then the next couple years, it was, what do I do with that? And so when COVID hit, I chose to view it as an opportunity, my furlough, that part of it, I chose to view as an opportunity to do the things that I've never had time to do before. So took the time, wrote the book, clarified my process, launched the business the way I always wanted to, and got coaching myself. So, I coach and train other people, And so I have to, in part, lead by example. And so it's not that I'm out here, I know all the answers. Absolutely not. I'd never run a coaching business before. I've run other businesses, but not a coaching business. So I got coaching and training on how to do some of these things and do some of the marketing and sales components that I've never done. So that was a pivotal transition, is getting my own coaching and training, and then moving forward with that with some new tools in the toolbox.
I love that I always say even coaches need coaches, because we're products of the product, and having that mission of just providing this purpose and this vision and the success for others is it's something that requires ongoing training and ongoing study. Is there any ongoing training, ongoing study that you would recommend to our listeners who really want to start walking this path? What are some things that maybe have guided you?
Well, I mean, from a faith perspective, of course, I would say that book was pivotal for me. Calzone, it was a very well written. It was almost more of a workbook. There were lots of questions that demanded you actually take some time to do some introspection and work on that. Recently, I went through one of David Bayer's programs, which was very, very good. So I can definitely recommend that as well. I mean, obviously, I've got my own coaching programs and things I do, but outside of that, there's a lot of resources. I was just on a virtual speaker success summit last week. Aaron Lohman Jack put that on, and that was great. There were a lot of different speakers that not only did I get to speak, but I got to learn from a lot of other people in the process. So it's a continual process. I'm always trying to learn more and find out new things and new ways of looking at things. And a lot of times I incorporate bits and pieces of that into my own. So, it's just a constant process.
Oh, that's
So,
fantastic. I actually
yeah.
met Aaron at a World's Greatest Speaker Training and Experts
Hmm.
Academy, Brennan Burchard. So that's wonderful. It seems we all kind of float around each other, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, yeah.
Well, what I'm really hearing though is that your learning journey hasn't stopped,
Nope.
and that you're not necessarily even attracted to the idea of knowing it all. It's more this journey. And so you're leading through example while you are also learning through example. Would you agree with that?
I would. And that's really funny because I'm not a journey person, right? I'm a destination guy. I want to get there. I don't enjoy the trip. Now, I mentioned that in my book too, because I have to learn, I have to work at changing that, because life is in the journey, and there's so much beauty and change and evolution and enjoyment in the journey, and in some cases, for my clients, for myself, other faith-driven organizations, whatever, they set this ideal destination. There's no guarantee you'll actually ever get there. God may have come along and change your course. You may realize halfway there that ideal destination wasn't nearly as ideal as you thought it was. There are a lot of things can happen along the journey, or you may just strive for it for 20, 30 years, even though you meant to get there in 7. 20 years from now, you're still not there. You're still working towards it. All of that is okay, because it's having the ideal destination and working towards it that is alignment with who you are and who God has made you to be and what he's called you to do.
Absolutely. And then sometimes not exactly where you think that it was going to go. I think that's a really important thing that you said there. It's you may have a destination in mind, someplace that you would like to go, and you're steering there. But sometimes, God does take the wheel and just say, nope, over here. This is actually where you're really, really needed.
Yeah.
Having that attitude of surrender, or what would you say is necessary to kind of cultivate that comfort with the re-steering?
Well, a lot of that comes with relationship with God. I mean, if you're close to him and you know him and you trust him, then when he puts the reef in front of you or the iceberg or whatever, and you can't go the way that you intended to go, and you've got a detour, that could be simply, he's making you work a little bit for it, because sometimes that builds character. It could be that he wants you to change direction altogether. But part of that is being in tune with who he is and who he's called you to be and where he's called you to go. But some of it's just figuring it out too. We have to be willing to be flexible. And again, that's not exactly one of my strengths, but it is absolutely something that's necessary in life. As we move out, we can't predict everything, and no matter how structured and how well we plan, they're just plans, and sometimes they get thwarted, and we've got to some degree be okay with that. Now, all that means to me is then, okay, the starting place in my methodology is called the big red dot, because on a map, that's usually what it's a big red dot where you are now. And so if you're out in the middle of the ocean, then on your way to your ideal destination, and you have a course correction or a course change, or God says, nope, I want you to go here now. Okay, what's your new big red dot? Where are you now? And now where do we want to go, and how do we get there from here? And so it's a flexible methodology, and that's one of the things I think is very valuable about it.
Yeah, you said some beautiful things here that I noticed a lot of people that I work with on a daily basis have difficulty, which is that transition. Recognizing that a plan is just a plan, that life just happens. Life takes us off course every once in a while. Really big things happen in our life. Parents get sick, or a sudden death in the family, or some kind of sudden illness, and your plans are poof, because your life really demands your attention and your time and your energy and your devotion. So, I notice a lot of people struggle with this. I'm guessing that you do too. So what are some of your tips for kind of coping with change?
Well, I guess for me, it comes back to identity and, knowing who you are as a person, knowing who you are in relationship to who God is. And if you're clear on all of that, and you know your purpose, and you know your ideal destination, then when things come along that can potentially derail you, it won't, because you're grounded in all of that truth. It's truth. It's not just about, oh, I think I want to go here. No. I know where I'm going. So let me give you an example. My wife and I, 2.5 weeks ago, were in a motorcycle accident. We hit
Wow.
a deer going about 60 miles an hour, middle of the afternoon. There was no reaction time whatsoever. We both saw it. She said, when she sees something and isn't sure if I did, she says, babe, and squeezed my shoulder. I heard that, saw it, hit it. It was that fast. There was no time to do anything. We were thrown from the bike. I have road rash all over my arms and a little bit on my face. It's all better now, or most of it's better now. Hurt my leg. She landed on her head, was airlifted to a hospital in Oak Lawn, Illinois. And as a precaution, at least that's what I was told at the time. And she actually did get released the next day, has a concussion, a couple cracked ribs. But I mean, all in all, we very much believe we were protected, that we could have died, maybe should have died, because it was potential for a terrible accident. We both, I wouldn't say walked away, but we eventually walked away fairly unharmed, all things considered. So all that to say, that could be a defining moment for almost anyone. And it was for us too, but instead of making us, derail from our path, it actually solidified. We're on the right path. We believe what we are doing is the right thing. And so as soon as we can, we're getting right back to it. And, that it brought clarity to a situation.
Well, not only that, but that's one of those kind of near-death experiences, right? A motorcycle versus a deer, you don't usually win. So knowing that, so many people that have had a lesser accident, right? They maybe just hit some gravel and skidded and didn't come out alive. We live in a really avid motorcycle area, and there's a pretty high number of motorcycle accidents, including fatalities, every year. So it's just like, the reality of the situation, yet you're confronted with, wow, we walked out of that not only uninjured for the most part, but like even more alive in some ways, I'm kind of hearing.
Yeah, not to get too out there, but I mean, I'm a pretty rational, reasonable person. I call myself an intellectual Christian because I really come at things from a much more head perspective first. But I really believe that there was a spiritual component to what all that was going on. We had some things going on in our home prior to that. We had, just what we're doing. We feel very called that what we're doing is the right path for us, from a God's perspective. And so, we really felt that was almost an attack. And so, having walked away from that, again, not literally, but, with as little damage as we had, we really felt very protected, and that it confirmed that, we're on that right path. And for me, I'm calling it my personal Pearl Harbor, because instead of what it was intended to destroy me, it got me in the war, so to speak. Got me into the battle.
Ooh, I love it. I love that so much. My personal Pearl Harbor. So for those in our audience that are listening right now, then you may have had a run-in with a near-death experience or a catastrophic event in its own right in your life. How can you turn this into your own personal Pearl Harbor?
And I think that's a really important distinction. I also want to address the audience in terms of any resistance to God, spirituality, anything like that. If you do fall into that camp, I encourage you to utilize your own naming convention for that thing outside of yourself that's bigger than you, whether you call it spirit, universe, God, whatever you call it, that's kind of that outside guiding force, that just isn't you. And if you're a thinker, you can absolutely even call that, that higher self intuition. But I think that having something is critically important in not feeling really so alone in the middle of the ocean, wouldn't you say, Eric?
Absolutely. The ocean, or the voyage of a business, or even a person, it can be very isolating. And I think that, when you actually, even in that isolation, though, hopefully we're not. Hopefully we bring people with us. Hopefully we find people along the way. But when those moments of isolation, just the vastness of what you're in, the magnitude of it should speak to something higher.
Absolutely, absolutely. So when you work with business owners, how do you make that link for them?
Well, a lot of that is what I'm really trying to do. I primarily work with faith-driven entrepreneurs, and the reason is because I find that so many faith-driven entrepreneurs are really struggling with a division in their so-called faith life versus their work life or their business. And really, in reality, there aren't faith lives and work lives or business. It's your life. And so your faith needs to permeate your home, and needs to permeate your business, and it all works together. It needs to be fully integrated and aligned. And so part of what I do is make sure that the business owners understand what their personal purpose here on this planet is. And that's why I wrote the second book. The methodology is the same in both books, but one's just verbalized more towards organizations, the other's verbalized more towards the individual, because as I'm working with a business owner, we have to get into their own. Why are you here? What is your purpose? What are your values? Because for most business owners, their business is just a part of what their personal purpose in life is.
Oh yeah, no, I love that you bridged that gap here, and that's one of the reasons we have this radio show of business therapy, of bridging that gap, of recognizing that wherever you are, you're there. So even if you're in the boardroom, it's still you, your values, your mission, and what's important to you. And then when you go home, and that crossover, that gap, and staying in alignment and in integrity with who you are as a whole being, despite whatever you're tapping to be tasking or doing.
Absolutely.
But that's not common sense. That's not even common knowledge. So I love that you're really helping bring that to the light.
Yeah, and that's funny you say that. Lighthouse, that's part of my vision. That's the ideal destination. Instead of a vision statement, which is again, part of the reason I renamed things is because I was battling this concept of everybody thinks they know what a mission statement is, and everybody thinks they know what a vision is. And so rather than have to give everybody, no, here's the definition you need to use within my system, I just said, you know what? I'm going to scrap all the terms and call them what I want to call them. So it's ideal destination. And the statement that you write to describe your ideal destination is called your lighthouse statement. So that, because the light draws you, it shows you, it's a beacon. So yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So we're
and the element of just being the light, being the light for the people that you serve in your business. I think what I'm hearing you say is that you yourself, your spirituality and your business are one and the same, and that one and the same is on a mission of purpose and on a mission of adding value to the world. And kind of what is that mission, and how do you navigate to that place where that mission meets fruition? And in order to do that, it's not just an academic exercise, it's about taking action. So once you have these statements, you don't just hang them on the wall, you take action with them. So Eric, if somebody wanted to learn more about you, how would they take action?
Yeah, so I've got a website. It's www.greenfireinnovations.com. So that's innovations with an S at the end, greenfireinnovations.com. And I mean, all the information's there. I can, there's, my books are there. I write a lot of blog content so that, people can kind of get a feel for what I do. Plus, I'd like to provide value for people anyway. So there's blog articles and things like that, but there's also, you can book a strategy session with me. It's free, just to kind of talk and see if there's even a possibility that I might be able to help or contribute. So yeah, the website's the best way to check out what I do, who I am, and next steps.
Oh, that's excellent. I hope people are going to check that out. So it was lovely, lovely, lovely having you on the show today. I took plenty of notes here, and I really love this this kind of bigger purpose of just knowing who you are and letting that lead the way. The obstacles are going to come, the distractions are going to be there, the things that take you off the track. But coming back to that knowing, coming back to that soul destination, that higher purpose that's beyond the kind of tangible things or the external things that are happening in your world will help you lead the way. So I really appreciate you sharing that message today. It's beautiful.
Absolutely. Really appreciate you having me. It was a lot of fun.
Thank you so much for being on the show. This has been Business Therapy, healing businesses from the inside out through communication and emotional intelligence. I'm Diana Hansen, management consultant.
And I'm Christine Salvo, licensed marriage and family therapist, advanced certified mediator, and hypnotherapist. Thank you so much for joining today. I hope you have a lovely day.
Have a wonderful and productive and purpose-driven day. Bye-bye. This is Business Therapy, healing businesses from the inside out through communication and emotion.